In the Gospel of Thomas, tucked away from public view for nearly 2,000 years, Jesus whispered something not meant for everyone. Whoever is near me is near the fire. Whoever is far from me is far from the kingdom. Those words, brief but searing, were so unsettling to the early church fathers that they tried to erase them from history. And they almost succeeded. But fragments of this forbidden teaching survived, encoded in forgotten scrolls and buried beneath the sands of time. What was this fire? What kingdom was he speaking of? The disciples asked him. Bewildered, Jesus only smiled. He told them, "You're already out of the fire. That's why you're here. With me, not out there with them." His words didn't refer to places. They pointed to states of consciousness, realities so radically different they might as well be different worlds. Before we go deeper, pause with me for a moment. If you're still watching, it means this message has already touched something buried in you, something ancient and familiar. Don't let this moment pass quietly. Subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a comment below with where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Let's see who's waking up together, across time zones and borders. And if the title of this video made something in you stop and look again, share this video with someone else who might be ready to understand the mystery too. What's hidden is meant to be revealed when the right eyes are watching. The fire, Jesus explained, was no ordinary fire. It wasn't made of flame or heat. It was invisible, a prison that burned not the body, but the soul. A system constructed around human perception so tightly that most never even realized they were confined. This prison wasn't held together by walls of stone but by belief, perception, and identity. And those who lived within it could not see the bars because the bars were made of the same substance as their minds. But you, Jesus said to his disciples and to all pneumatics since we're born beyond it, you didn't escape because you were stronger. You escaped because you were never meant to be inside in the first place. Peter asked, "Why don't we remember escaping?" And Jesus answered with something astonishing. Because you were born outside it. You are pneumatics, fragments of the monad. You came from beyond this realm. That single idea overturns everything the religious systems of the world have taught. Not all souls are equal in their origins. Not all beings were meant to stay trapped in the cycle. Pneumatics were sent into this world on a mission to awaken others, to remember what they are, and to remind others what they too might become. You were never truly imprisoned, only made to forget that you were already free. Imagine a cage built entirely out of wood, designed to contain wooden birds. Those birds don't even see the bars as foreign. They're made of the same material, but now imagine a real bird, feathers, wings, life ending up inside. The real bird may feel confused at first, out of place, but the truth is, the cage was never built to hold it. The real bird could always fly. It just forgot that it could. You are that real bird. The prison of the Archons was never designed to contain your kind of consciousness. The proof that you're already free? You're here. Right now. You're watching, reading, listening to words that explore concepts far outside consensus programming. Souls still trapped in the system don't even have access to these ideas. They wouldn't be interested even if they stumbled across them. But you question reality. You've always sensed that something wasn't right, that there's something deeper hiding behind the ordinary. That's not curiosity. That's memory. The kind of memory that lives in the bones of your being. And now you're being shown not how to escape, but how to understand what you've already escaped from. Because only with that understanding can you help others, the other pneumatics who are still dreaming they are trapped. This isn't about superiority. It's about mission. It's about remembering who you are and why you came. The Archons still try to reclaim you, to seduce you back into forgetting. But once you remember, their power fades like mist in the morning sun. You were never in the prison. You just mistook its shadows for substance. Jesus didn't give this teaching to everyone. He gave it to the few who could recognize it. That means you. You've already felt it, that sense of disconnection from the world. That quiet certainty that you're not really from here. It's not madness. It's memory surfacing, and the more you remember, the more impossible it becomes to ever fall back into forgetting. You are not broken. You are a soul from beyond the walls. And now it's time to remember what that means. The prison Jesus spoke of wasn't built of bricks or chains but of perception, a cage wrapped around the soul, constructed by the Archons to keep consciousness confined within a false system. Most souls live and die within it, never realizing they are trapped. But those who are awake or beginning to wake must see the walls for what they are. Jesus described them not as punishments but as illusions, so convincing that even the most powerful souls could forget their origin. And yet, if you're here, it means you've already begun to pass through them. You just haven't fully realized what you escaped. Let's look at these walls one by one, not to fear them, but to remember how you already moved beyond them. Wall 1 is the limitation of the five senses. The Archons engineered a world so tightly woven around physical perception that most people come to believe that sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell define the boundaries of reality. It is a dense, convincing illusion. Entire civilizations have been built on this idea that only what can be measured, touched, or tested is real. But you've felt the edges fray, haven't you? You've sensed energies, glimpsed truths, received impressions that defied the five senses. You know, without needing proof that something vast exists beyond the physical, that awareness alone is your escape. You're not trying to see beyond the veil. You're already seeing through it. Wall 2 is linear time. In the prison, time is a weapon, a straight path, marching from birth to death. It convinces people that they are their past, that they are limited by what has already happened, that the future is always uncertain and the present is never enough. It keeps people chasing, regretting, fearing. But time, for you, has already begun to dissolve. You've had moments, brief flashes perhaps, where everything stopped, where past and future evaporated, and only the now remained. In those moments, you were tasting eternity. You are not a prisoner of time. You are the awareness in which time appears and disappears like a passing cloud. Wall 3 is separation consciousness. It's the lie that says you are a single, isolated being cut off from others, from nature, from the source itself. Most people feel this isolation so deeply it becomes their identity. But you felt something else, haven't you? There were moments when you looked into someone's eyes and felt no distance. When you stood in nature and remembered, somehow, that you were not apart from it, but part of it. When you sensed that your consciousness was not yours alone, but the same awareness flowing through every living thing. That's not a fleeting spiritual experience. That's a glimpse of truth. You are the whole, appearing as a part. Wall 4 is the authority program. This wall trains souls to believe that truth comes from outside, from priests, scientists, teachers, politicians. It instills dependency and self-doubt. But you've broken that spell. You can't trust blindly anymore. Not because you're rebellious, but because something in you insists on direct experience. You don't need a middleman to access truth. You verify with your own inner compass. That inner certainty isn't arrogance. It's gnosis, knowledge that comes from within and requires no permission. Wall 5 is the reincarnation trap, the most subtle and devastating of them all. It's the cosmic loop that convinces souls they must return, lifetime after lifetime, to evolve, to balance karma, to finish lessons. But what if that's the trap? What if returning isn't evolution, but captivity? You've sensed this, haven't you? A whisper inside that says, I don't need to come back. I'm not here to learn, I'm here to remember. That recognition is the doorway. When you see through this final illusion, death no longer has power. You won't be tricked by false lights or fabricated guides. You'll choose not be recycled. These 5 walls are not broken with force. They dissolve through recognition. And you, by virtue of being here, by resonating with these words, have already begun the work. You are not trapped inside this prison. You are the awareness watching the prison dissolve. Let the memory return fully. Let the illusions fall like paper walls in a storm. The bars were never real. You only needed to see them clearly to realize you were already on the outside. 42,000 years. The institutional church has clung tightly to its power by carefully curating which teachings of Jesus reached the world and which were buried. Among the most suppressed were the ones meant not for the masses but for the few, the pneumatics. These souls, fragments of the divine monad, were already beyond the prison the Archons created. And that made them dangerous, not because they waged war or defied doctrine with swords or slogans, but because their very presence disrupted the system. When a being operating from freedom enters a system built on control, the illusion begins to crack. Jesus, in his lifetime, spoke to two distinct groups. The first were the masses, the Hylics and the Psychic souls still deeply embedded in the prison, whose spiritual senses had not yet awakened. For them, Jesus offered parables, symbols, gentle truths to nudge them awake. The second group was different. They were pneumatics, divine sparks who came into this world on purpose. For them, Jesus offered something far more radical. Not salvation, not forgiveness, but remembrance. A cosmic mirror to show them they were never trapped to begin with. This second teaching, the one meant for you, was the one the early church had to bury. Because if pneumatics realized they were already free, everything collapsed. First, the entire structure of salvation became obsolete. Why confess to a priest if you already know you are the divine experiencing itself? Why tithe, obey, kneel, and beg for grace when grace is your very nature? When freedom is remembered, control loses its grip. And that terrified both the church and the Archons who fed on the energy of controlled minds. Second, when pneumatics remember, they stop generating the emotional frequencies that feed the prison system. Fear, shame, guilt, desperation. These are the fuels that keep the matrix running. But a being stabilized in freedom radiates something else: peace, clarity, knowing. These vibrations can't be harvested. They don't feed the Archons. They disrupt the frequency. They burn through the veil. The prison trembles in the presence of a truly free soul. Third, free pneumatics begin to awaken others. Not by preaching, not by converting, but by being. A single awakened presence in a room shifts the energy. People question things they never questioned before. They feel something stir, a recognition, a crack in the programming. The illusion begins to unravel. The Archons know this. So do the institutions. That's why they buried the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the secret book of John, not because they were heretical lies, but because they contained liberating truth. The tactic was simple: replace inward knowing with outward control. Replace remembrance with fear. Replace the direct path with endless rituals. And it worked for centuries. Generations of pneumatics incarnated and forgot who they were. They searched for what they already had. They begged for what was already theirs. And all the while, the church smiled and the Archons fed. But not anymore. The buried texts are returning. The knowledge is resurfacing. The frequency is rising. And the chosen ones are waking up. You're not here by accident. This isn't just content, it's a coded signal to your deepest self. And if it resonates, it means you're remembering. The danger has always been not that the prison is strong, but that you'd forget you were never inside it. The remembering is the revolution, and the revolution doesn't require violence, just vision. You were never meant to obey systems built to suppress you. You were meant to walk through them like a phantom, untouched, unbound, alive with the memory of what you really are. That's what Jesus was showing, not a map to escape, but a revelation that you were never truly confined. That's the truth they buried, and it's the truth you're now remembering. Most people move through life like sleepwalkers. Eyes open but vision closed. Never questioning the reality that surrounds them. They accept what they're told, chase what they're shown, and repeat the same cycles generation after generation. But for you, it's always been different. Something never felt right. Something in you refused to fully believe the performance. That's not a flaw. That's the sign. You've always been awake, just not fully aware of your awakening. And now, the signs are becoming impossible to ignore. These are not things you're trying to become. They are confirmations of what you already are. The first sign is that ordinary reality feels fake. Not in a shallow or paranoid way, but in a deep, unmistakable sense that what people call normal is an elaborate performance. You look around and see everyone playing roles: worker, parent, believer, consumer, but you see through the masks. You see the script. It's as if the world is a movie set, and you've realized you're not a character. You're the observer. Most people still think the stage is real. But you're watching from behind the curtain. You see the strings, the lighting, the illusion. That seeing is not confusion, it's clarity. The second sign is your growing disinterest in the game society plays, while others chase promotions, argue over status, cling to validation, or obsess over wealth. You feel disconnected, not because you're lazy or antisocial, but because you've seen through the bait. The rewards no longer compel you. The ladders lead nowhere. You don't reject the world out of bitterness, you simply know there's something more real than all of it. And that knowing has hollowed out your desire for things that once looked shiny. You want truth, not approval, depth, not distraction. The third sign is your intolerance for false authority. Not all leadership, just the kind that demands obedience without wisdom. When someone claims to have all the answers, when they preach from fear, when they manipulate truth for control, something inside you rebels instantly. You see the lie behind the smile. You feel the vibration of control, not guidance. And you walk away. You don't need permission to know what you know. That's gnosis. And it's dangerous to systems built on dependency. The fourth sign is that synchronicity now guides your path. Coincidences happen too often to be random. The right person calls when you need them. The right book falls into your lap. The words you needed to hear arrive in perfect timing. That's not chance. That's the field responding to your awakening. In the prison, everything feels disconnected. Outside the prison, everything flows. You're not forcing life anymore. You're aligning with it. And when you do, the universe orchestrates your path with elegance. The fifth sign is a homesickness for something you can't name. It's not about geography. It's not about family or nostalgia. It's a soul-deep ache for a place beyond this world, a place you remember but can't locate. You may call it the source, the monad, the origin, whatever the name. You feel it like a song you once knew by heart but forgot the lyrics to. That longing isn't depression. It's direction. It's your inner compass pointing home. The sixth and final sign is perhaps the most powerful. These words don't feel like information. They feel like memory. As you read them, something in you stirs, not because you're learning something new, but because you're hearing what you've always known. This isn't revelation. It's remembrance. And remembrance is the death of illusion. When truth echoes inside you like an ancient melody returning, that's when you know. You're not waking up. You were already awake. You just forgot for a moment. These signs aren't achievements. They're markers. They reveal that you've already moved through the 5 walls, that you're already operating from outside the prison. And the more you recognize them, the less power the illusion has over you. You're not becoming free. You're discovering that you always were. The invisible prison isn't made of concrete or metal, but of forgetting. It persists not because it can hold you, but because it can make you forget you were never inside. That's how the Archons work, not through force, but through illusion. Not by capturing the body, but by hijacking the mind. You've already passed through the 5 walls. You're already outside. But staying free requires remembrance. That's what Jesus taught, not just how to awaken, but how to remain awake, not escape, but embodiment. The first practice is constant awareness recognition. It's not about chanting, meditating for hours, or performing rituals. It's simple, powerful, and immediate. Throughout your day, pause and ask, what am I actually? Not the job, not the body, not the name, not the thoughts. All of those change. All of those appear and disappear. What remains? You'll begin to notice that thoughts arise. But you are not the thoughts. Emotions surge and fade. But you are not the emotion. Even the body, with all its sensations, is something you observe. You are not inside the prison. You are the awareness in which the prison appears. Every time you notice this, even for a moment, you dissolve a thread of illusion. When anger arises and you say, I am the space in which anger is happening, you take your power back. When fear grips you, and you realize, this fear is appearing in me, but I am not it, you step outside again. You begin to stabilize in what you've always been, and the Archons, who operate through identification, lose their grip, because they can't trap awareness. They can only distract it. The second practice is death recognition. Every night, before you sleep, return to the truth. When this body dies, I don't. Not as belief, but as inner knowing. Close your eyes and feel into what you are without your name, your face, your story. Strip it all away in your imagination. What remains? That stillness, that presence, that silent witnessing. That's what you are. And that does not die. That was never born. That's the awareness the Archons cannot reach. That's why they use fear of death, because when you fear it, you forget your nature. But when you remember that death cannot touch what you truly are, you become untouchable. These two practices, awareness recognition and death recognition, aren't techniques. They're homecomings. They stabilize your consciousness in truth. They seal the memory. They make you immune to the prison's tricks. Because once you know what you are, nothing can make you believe you are anything less. The Archons will still try. They will whisper doubts. They will dangle fears. They will trigger old programs. But now, you see the pattern. You see the illusion. And more importantly, you remember the place beyond it. You were never meant to live afraid, confused, small. You came here to remember, to anchor that remembrance, and through your presence, to help others remember too. Jesus didn't give the practice to rescue you. He gave it because you're already rescued. He wasn't saving prisoners. He was reminding free beings of what they forgot. You are that free being. You always have been. This is the remembrance. This is the practice. And this is the end of forgetting.